Welcome to Breaking the Couch, a weekly conversation demystifying what happens in and behind the therapy scene to support your healing journey. We're your hosts.
I'm Dr. Dowdson, a licensed clinical professional counselor, a certified school psychologist, and a trauma specialist with Playfully Psyched.
And I'm Dr. Jo Harchi with Soft Art Psychology, a licensed clinical psychologist.
We're here aiming to provide you with mental health tools to address the cycle of generational trauma across the age span, from infancy and childhood to adulthood.
For more information, visit our Instagram page at Breaking the Couch or our website, breakingthecouch.com. While we hope you love listening to and learning from our podcast, it's not a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional.
All right, audience, today we're doing something a little bit different and we're super excited to share this. So we are actually going to do an episode breakdown and look at it from a mental health perspective on the show Uncoupled, which comes on Netflix. So we are going to say there's going to be lots of spoilers in this. So if you have not watched episode 1 of Uncoupled and you want to watch episode 1 of Uncoupled, maybe skip this episode and come back to it after you've watched it. But we're going to talk a lot about that first episode. So a little bit of background is that Uncoupled is about a couple who have been together for 17 years, unmarried, and one partner is planning a surprise birthday party for the other. So that person, his name is Michael in the show. Michael is planning a surprise, huge birthday party for his partner, Colin. As Michael and Colin are walking up to the steps of where the surprise party is going to take place, Colin turns to Michael and says, "I have moved out." Because Michael had thought that they were robbed. And he was like, "Nope, I moved out. I packed my things. I have an apartment. I'm out of here." And then the doors open and everyone that Michael and Colin love says, "Surprise." And we go from there. All right, Dr. Jahart, you pick it up.
It was horrible, right? So Colin's like, "I've been trying to talk to you," and Michael kind of falls into the door of the surprise party, like you said. And it's so sad because people kind of scoop up Colin to love on him and send him birthday wishes. And Michael's trying to scramble to like get through the different friends so that he can see, like, what are you talking about, Colin? I think he took the clothes and he took the wine.
The wine.
Like, so weird. And Michael's just like, "I need to talk to you." I felt like he felt like they were robbed, and then he finds out that they're not, and so he's scrambling
He was robbed, essentially.
Oh,
Right?
right?
Think about that, like an emotional robbery
That's right.
within the relationship. Because how do you move out and not tell me you're moving out? Like, how do you, and then still show up to our dinner on your birthday? What?
So confusing. What is right? It was so sad too. I don't know about you, but like, as a therapist, as a trauma therapist, but also just as a person, right, who's been through breakups, you're just like, "Oh, my heart." Like, I felt like so sad for him as he scrambled looking for his partner to find out, like, what the heck is going on.
Yes, that chaotic scramble of, "We need to talk about this. Maybe, did I hear what you said? Are you serious? You're leaving me," right? And
Mhm.
so it's the realization, like, "Oh, we were not robbed. Wait, we weren't robbed. Wait, you're moving out? I thought we were going to be together for the rest of our lives, and you have unilaterally made a decision that affects me and my life and my heart, and you're gone. You're just gone. And this is how you tell me after you've already taken all your things out." And like you said, in this really weird configuration of things that you took, right? That it was like, oh, it's like a partial robbery. It was just a
Mhm.
weird thing. Yes, as a person, my empathy meter was like off the charts. I even thinking
Mhm.
about it, like, it felt like I was being heartbroken. Like, it
Mhm.
felt physical pain of only trying to imagine what that's like, and to the amount of planning and preparation that it goes into to make a surprise party, right? And for it to be that, like, "But wait, we can't even talk about this because now I have to like smile, yes, for the lovely couple," and
And then
you
make a
just
speech?
then make a
Oh,
speech.
oh my
Exactly.
gosh.
I also think that I personally look at parties, surprise parties is super, super special most of the time
Yeah.
because it is like so much secrecy and so much planning, and they're a lot more work than like telling the person what's going on. And so just the amount of care that can go into those, and then that's how it ends up. And right, there's a scene where Michael is called to the stage to give Colin a speech. And Michael's kind of like trying to get out of it, like this is not the right time, and he can't get out of it, or it's hard for him to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so he has to give a speech to Colin and talk about how great he is, when he has just essentially ripped out his heart and stomped all over it and danced and partied over it. So thinking about in the context of mental health, I think about that fear of abandonment.
Oh my gosh, so relevant here. Mm-hmm.
And how, you know, situations like this can cause people to have a fear of abandonment, because from Michael's perspective, he didn't think that there were signs of
That's really
unhappiness.
sad. Sure. That's going to cause some abandonment stuff.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was out of nowhere. It was unexpected, right? And he was so
Mm-hmm.
secure in their relationship that his first thought was, oh, we've been robbed. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully insurance will cover it, you know, and not, oh, is my partner leaving me? I think I would have thought his clothes are gone. Oh, he left me. I think that would have been my thought. But that also shows what's going on in my head and my world psychologically. So I think that is an interesting point to remember, that people come to relationships with the past and experiences. And so Michael can be going into his next relationship with this experience, right?
Absolutely. And we don't know what supports Michael has too. Like, I guess we kind of do, but because we did see, two what seemed to be two parents at the beginning of the party, and we saw lots and lots of friends. But it does make me think, because his dad said something like, when I first saw you two together, it was like, meh. And it just makes me think, what does he have to fall back on? Because we kind of saw like a superficial snapshot of his supports. And then when he gets in the car and his partner texts him like, hey, can we go to couples counseling at 3 p.m.? Well, again, it's that what you said, unilateral decision making. He didn't say, can we? He said, meet me at couples counseling at 3 p.m. Is that cool? Or something like that. It was like,
like I made an appointment or
you
something. Yeah, like,
brat.
yeah, meet me.
Yeah. Sorry. He's not a brat, but I'm looking forward to hearing more about his perspective. However, his text bummed me out because I saw, what's his name? I wrote the names out. Michael, scrambling, trying to figure out how to reply yes with like a bunch of
Oh,
exclamations or
yeah.
just one. And I don't know if you've been there, but I've been there, just even friend-wise, let alone romantically. But especially, I like what you said, the fear of abandonment romantically, where you're just like, your heart feels like it's in your stomach or something, and you feel like you're about to barf, and you're like, if I say the wrong exclamation, I'm going to be too big with my feelings. If I don't say enough, am I going to lose this person? So yeah, so sad.
Yeah. I like that yeah, so sad. I also like that you talked about like, well, we'll hear about Colin's perspective in a moment. But I think that, Colin's perspective, one of the things that he was trying to claim to say is like, I tried to talk to you. Like I tried to tell you, or something along those lines. And it's like, no, you didn't. There's so many things that you do or you don't, right? You could have blurted out you live together, right? At any moment, you could have said, I'm unhappy. At any moment, you didn't try to talk about it, right? You chose the way that you thought would be easiest on you. So that was self-preservation, right? Colin chose the situation that was, because it is, right? It's avoidance. Leaving, bagging your stuff in the middle of the night, and there's no domestic violence, there's no intimate partner violence. So packing your stuff and moving out before you tell your partner is 100% in this context about your own emotional preservation, and does not think about the relationship that you're in with that other person, their feelings and their emotions, right? So people say, I've tried to talk to you about it. you've thought about it. What you're saying is you've thought about talking to me about it, or you've thought about me having this conversation. But how do you try to have a conversation unless someone's like putting tape over your mouth, or like, what does trying to have a conversation look like?
Okay, really, really good point. And he does it again in couples therapy. You and I talked about
Mm-hmm.
that for a second, but it's like, what is happening there in couples therapy? I was like, what literally just happened? That was the most useless thing. By the end of it, I think the couples therapist was like, okay, so I believe in couples working it out and blah blah. Basically, like, here's my philosophy on how you two can really put in the work and make it work. And I was just like, what? Like, they could have gotten that off your website.
So exactly. So that was the worst, one of the worst. It was a horrible depiction of a therapist,
Thank you.
or a good depiction of an incompetent therapist. Maybe we should say that, because first of all, I could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to show that Michael takes up a lot of energy in their relationship,
Hmm.
right? Michael was so excited to be in couples therapy, to like be working on this relationship, to because he wants Colin to stay. He wants that life with him. That Michael talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, right? And Michael was like, I did, I know I need to work on this. And he was like, just all the words. He filled the space, right? A therapist that is competent, and not even good, but competent in their job, would have cut Michael off at some point. Okay.
Really good point. Mm-hmm.
Instead of, the therapist leaned over in the chair at one point, was like dozing off, right? And looked super bored. And Colin sat there, just looking frustrated and like, this is what I mean when I say I try to talk. Basically, like, you
Mm.
get a word in edgewise, right? And so I can see what the picture they were trying to paint. And at the same time, I want people to know and walk away from, if your couples therapist, and I look at it from a family's perspective, right? Because in family therapy, it's the same thing, or group therapy, right? You need to be balancing and making sure that all parties are heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look over and you notice that Colin is not being able to get a word in edgewise, part of your role, the reason why you're there, what they're paying you for, what they're asking for your support, is to be able to intervene and say something like, Michael, I see you're really passionate and it's really important. We're going to allow space for Colin to actually speak now, because it's been 5 minutes. Or you're going to reflect on, your excitement is coming out in so many words. We're going to slow this down a little bit. There's so many things, so many ways I could go on from the episode. So many ways that they could have done that differently, and they didn't,
I
right?
really like that. I'm like, ooh, I need to keep that in mind. That was good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, right? So not to put the burden on Colin, but in this situation, if that's the example he was going to give, see, I can't get a word in edgewise, for example, he also didn't try. He didn't do. Maybe he tried. He didn't do. He didn't say, Michael, you're talking an awful lot. I have something to say. Like, even if we have to go back to scripts, right? Michael, I know you're excited, but this is what I mean. You talk a lot, and I, like, we can.
Like, I'm not being heard. This is our
Yeah,
time to make it work or consciously uncouple, whatever. Yeah.
exactly. So yes, I love that we're talking about Colin's perspective, and Colin doesn't get a break because Michael takes up a lot of emotional space or verbal space in their relationship. That's not,
Mm-hmm.
you both were
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship or not, and you stepped out. Colin stepped out first.
Really, really good point. And the therapist, the counselor, whatever, I really like that you're saying that he could have empowered Colin, or Colin could have kind of been empowered himself. Either one. Yeah.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and still supported Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Michael's excitement could be interpreted as a sign of how much this relationship really does mean to him.
Absolutely. He's like
Right?
trying to ask that lady beforehand, like, were you not supportive of the space
Oh,
your ex-husband was trying to take at that
What
time?
was her name? I just Claire. So you're talking. So you did see Claire wasn't that
Uh,
person.
I did not
So
know who that was. Okay, that's clear.
so Michael is a real estate agent, and so he was helping, trying to get a bid to help Claire, who's a woman who was in a similar situation. Her husband just kind of up and was like, I don't want you. I'm marrying. I want to date my Pilates instructor or something
Oh
like that.
no.
After they had been married for 40 years. So like, this uncoupling was happening parallel in their lives. And so yes, exactly. We could see that Michael was invested in the relationship enough to be super excited and want to talk about all the things. And the therapist missed an opportunity. The therapist was not a good therapist, period. Point blank. Like, here we are. Was not okay. So I don't want people to think that that's what therapy looks like.
No, it's not.
Or,
No.
or should look like, quote unquote.
No, we roll up our sleeves and help them do something, whether one way or another. So many things. My last thing I want to say about the show, which I'm really loving this episode, great idea, Dr. Dotson, is the text that there's nothing to work on from Colin. At the very end, major spoiler alert, right? So the session's over, and Michael's thinking that they're gonna put in the work and see if something could come of that. Yeah, come next week, exactly. And Colin says, actually, again, surprise, unilateral decision. There's nothing to work on. And then the Sam Smith song. I was like, oh my God, all this is so sad and relatable in one way or another. I'm just like, ouch. So
which I love that you brought that up,
yeah.
right? Because that brings up one of the points I wanted to bring. What happens when you are done in a relationship? What happens very often, whether it is romantic, friendship, what have you, whatever kind of relationship it is, you have taken the time, energy, and emotional labor within yourself to go through all these emotions. You've probably grieved, you've agonized, you've debated, you've calculated, you've kind of thought about all these things. By the time you get to the point where you actually leave or tell the person that you're leaving, you were out, you were all the way out of the relationship. You're at the point of getting towards healing in that way, right? Of like, hey, I'm ready to explore what else is out there. I'm ready to start this other part of my life. The problem is there's such a huge imbalance because you did all that alone.
Yeah.
You didn't, especially in this instance with Colin, right? There was no point where he said, I'm unhappy with my life, or I'm unhappy in this relationship. And I'm not saying I want to leave yet, but I've started thinking about it, right? That's not the point where he brought Michael in so that Michael could start the panic and all the feelings that comes up with that. And hey, can we work on it? Whatever comes up. He brought Michael into it after he had been over that hurdle. And so Michael's at the starting point of the shock, the panic, the grief, the sadness, the anger, all those feelings. He's at the starting point where Colin is already on the tail end of it, right? And so it's such an interesting thing that people will say, like, they just need to get over me, or they just need to like move on. You were allowed a head start. You did all this prep and planning, and then you blindsided the person that thought that you were in love with them or thought that you were in a relationship with them. And now they have to catch up, and then they have to deal with the shock of it, which is emotion you didn't necessarily have. So they have an additional. And so just remembering that within uncoupling or leaving a relationship, the healthy thing is to start talking about it when you start to think about it, right? Instead of sitting with that, because you are in a interaction with someone else, and the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be on them. Yeah, it's easier on you, but is that the type of person or partner you want to be in your world?
Yeah.
Causing harm and damage to other people and trauma. This is it was a relationship trauma. Huge.
Absolutely. 17 years. Yeah.
Absolutely. Just kind of helping people see the imbalance that happens in a breakup often.
I think that's a really great point. Yeah. And thanks again for this idea. Great show you chose.
Yeah, I thought it was because I was emotionally invested in that first episode. I was like, oh, this would be a good one to talk about and break that down a piece. So we hope you enjoyed kind of breaking this down, seeing what two trauma therapists think about an episode that had a different type of trauma, like a relationship trauma,
Mhm.
and different components of how the two main characters were feeling. If you have comments about this show or others, you know where to find us. You can add us on Breaking the Couch on Instagram. You can visit our website, breakingthecouch.com. You can leave us a message or fill out the poll for the podcast wherever you listen. You can leave us a voicemail on Anchor. And of course, if there's ever books we put in our bookshop, and encourage you to shop there so that you can save local bookstores and give us a little kickback on these final few episodes that we have coming up. Until next time.
If you are looking for a therapist for yourself or your child, you can visit our websites, playfullypsych.com or softheartpsychology.com.
We appreciate you joining us this week and can't wait till there's another opportunity to jump on the couch with you next week.